Hello everyone, what is up? It is me, Ewan from WhatCulture Gaming. Today joined by Scott Tailfield.
Hello.
Because Scott this morning crashed through the door in a really cool fashion, like the Kool-Aid man of content. He told me that we had several news stories to talk to you about today. So Scott, what have we got?
Well, I'm not going to let. So this is.
What have we, Scott?
This might seem like not a big deal, but to me, this is a huge thing. Microsoft have finally fixed the Xbox One dashboard. It only took them 6 years. But they're finally rolling out a new overhaul dashboard that, according to, or looking at the footage available from some of the Xbox Insider program, actually runs nice and smooth in a way that a dashboard should.
That's nice. I remember when they got rid of the tiles in the Xbox 360 and they introduced avatars. That was a great jolly day when everyone was making their avatar and then realising, why were we doing this? You could actually spend real life money on your avatar.
That's the thing about looking as simplistic as me, is that you can just make yourself in avatar, just click the beard on, click the spiky hair and you're done. But yeah, so for the longest time, Microsoft used to be known for overhauling their dashboards and doing stuff that sort of responded to community feedback, and they've had a few sort of rejigs over the years, but this one, as we looked at it before we came in, is very much like the XMB, or at least the main menu is. You have like a string of tiles along the middle, and the store pages and everything else is kind of like the Windows 10 that they used to have anyway. But what do you think of the Windows 10 style thing? Because I'm not really a fan.
Yeah, I'm not too keen on the whole tiley thing. I think it's weird because when I saw it, when you showed me the footage this morning, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the PlayStation 4 dashboard, where the way you have the tiles set out where, but I think the Sony one is still more navigable at this point. And it's weird because I remember when I used to be on Xbox, I used to think that the Xbox 360 had the better user interface. You had the
blades.
The blades were really handy. They were
back.
very funny. And then obviously then Sony had all the mad mishaps of the PlayStation Network, and it wasn't very easy to navigate. But this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't got a specific date when this is rolling out. It was the initial footage came from Redditor DomoFun, great name, who it's one of the Xbox insiders. Got to see how it's potentially going to go. But my whole thing with the Xbox Dash is that they've had all this other like brilliant infrastructure for Xbox, all the backwards compatibility stuff, the games with gold.
Which I'm very jealous and envious of.
It's so good. It's like it's taken them this long to to have like a solid sort of foundation for everything. And Game Pass is brilliant and whatever. But when you're actually like you said, navigating through those different menus, it's so sluggish and slow. If you have the original Xbox anyway, if you have an X or an S, it's a bit faster. But the way that they've sort of rolled this out seems like it'll at least make it nice and liquid smooth, and you can just enjoy all things Xbox, which is kind of all they need to do at this point, because they ain't going to take over PS4 or Switch. Next thing down though is that Bungie, remember them? Remember when Bungie were a thing?
I remember the days of Halo and fun times.
Me
the
too.
Heartbreak that followed Halo. And they left to seek pastures new with Activision going, come hither Bungie, we'll take
We've got all the money.
Look, we've got money.
So at this point, they split from Activision. I forget the exact year. I think it was last year, maybe the year before.
Yes, last year.
Yes. They split from Activision, but they retained the Destiny IP. So it was always that assumption of what are they going to do going forward, because a lot of the wrong decisions, or the more divisive decisions with what Destiny became, very much came from Activision. There were lots of reports when Bungie split of high fives in the meeting room when they finally finalized, them going forward as an independent studio. So one of the new things that's come out, even though there was a trademark filed last October for a game called Matter, which we've seen the logo of, if it ends up being the case, it's like this. It just says Matter with a lot of like powdery explosions behind it. For whatever that's going to be. It does matter. Apparently, there's apparently a budding court case from a French company called Matters that are just sort of like, we matter and we don't want you mattering more than us. So apparently that's a potential thing. But so with this thing on go, the potential new Bungie thing called Matter, one of Bungie's CEOs, Pete Parsons, was talking to IGN.
A bit of alliteration.
Pete Parsons is a great name. He's a potential superhero.
Stan Lee-esque, isn't it?
I know, he might be.
Pete Parsons, get Peter Parker.
Slinking in, swinging around New York. Yep. It's 10 in the morning. But so he was talking to IGN, and he said that they basically want Bungie to become a multi-franchise company by 2025. So whatever the hell they're working on, it's assumedly going to be. It's not that long.
5 years?
I know.
Nearly.
And it's
I got the maths wrong. It's 6 years away.
Well, it's almost 5.
And a few months away.
But in terms of modern day development cycle, something like God of War took 5 years. Like not most, but a lot of big tier modern day generational games can take that long. So they had that whole investment from Chinese company NetEase that gave them $100 million, which is ludicrous.
They could give us
just a little side thing. Depends how much you like Destiny, which we don't. No. So I mean, it's all right, but. Yeah, so the way that it seems that Bungie's going forward is that they're retaining the Destiny IP, they're still doing lots of Destiny stuff. Whatever the hell, if they do a Destiny 3 or whatever, their 10-year contract is up as of, I think, 2020, when the development initially started on that game and whatever. So it's interesting going forward because they have all the money, they're in charge of the Destiny IP, but they also want to do new stuff. I guess, what do you want to see from a completely independent Bungie?
Yes, it's weird for me because I think Destiny has such a good lore and backstory to it. I think, when Destiny was announced, it was like, oh my god, Bungie are going to do another Halo. They're going to, really carve out their niche as proper sci-fi auteurs in the gaming medium. And then obviously Destiny kind of got derailed by, the loot shoot mechanics. It felt as though the mechanics of the game didn't necessarily lend themselves well to the world that they had created. People were really craving a story-driven sci-fi game in the vein of Halo, and what they got was something a little bit more meandering and less focused. I know the sequel addressed some of those concerns, but at the end of the day, it's still a loot shooter. So I'd love to see Destiny, at least another game. Obviously, the people who are big fans of that series will probably want it to stay, where it's going, but I would love to see them maybe branch out from Destiny and do a proper single-player focused one, maybe in the vein of Halo, and then after that, maybe try something else apart from first-person shooters, even though it is within their wheelhouse. I would love to see Bungie just basically carving out new IPs, whether it is something with the sci-fi focus. I think they have a great eye for sci-fi, I think that would be great if they really carved that out as their niche and kept with science fiction. I think they could definitely do other stuff, but I would love to see them just keep on going and try different things. Maybe a third-person shooter, maybe an RPG that's not a first-person shooter, maybe something that's about slicing, I don't know, a bit of stabby stab.
Something with a Master Chief. They, because they kind of are in a similar position as Guerrilla in terms of like Guerrilla were designing or developing Killzone games for so long, and eventually, then they sort of like got out of that and they did Horizon, which was this brilliant, colourful, but like completely different sort of thing, completely different feel and everything. And Bungie have been very much a first-person studio for as long as I've been alive. I mean, I think they did Marathon before Halo. They've been doing first-person stuff.
What?
Yeah, before both of us are on this planet, I think. But that's the thing. Do they stick to what they know? Because for as much as like I'm a humongous Bungie fan, or at least I was back in the day, and I find that Destiny's just fascinating. Like I think that game's core combat is phenomenal, but I never thought it was backed up with any narrative stuff. So I'm like, do you stick to your wheelhouse and keep that momentum going that was at the end of Halo, or do you try and branch out and do something else? But like you said, at least they've come up with lots of new worlds before.
Yeah, and we've seen this as a trend with lots of different, like you said, Guerrilla, Respawn Entertainment. Obviously, it's not the same Respawn who did Titanfall. It's a different part of the overall company that's doing Fallen Order, but it's still Respawn at the end of the day. And if Bungie's going to expand as big as they proclaim themselves to be, that'll mean that they'll have loads of different potential genres working at play. I would love to do, because I love stealth, and stealth never is a thing anymore. A stealth sci-fi game.
Goose Game. Literally.
Stealth, cyberpunk Goose.
Maybe cyberpunk Goose.
Game.
In terms of Bungie staff, as we were saying before we came in terms of like the people that made Bungie what it was, like obviously the vast majority are still there, but Joseph Staten left. He went to work on Recore, and now he's with Microsoft Game Studios. Marty O'Donnell left the studio, so it's those sort of iconic elements that made the Halo trilogy what it was. It's not really that anymore, so it's like whatever it depends. Like Bungie would kind of have to prove themselves all over again with a new IP.
And that's the thing, Bungie's core identity, what is it anymore? That's not meant to be as a really, nasty thing to say. I just think it's a point worth proving that when Bungie left Microsoft and some people from Bungie stayed behind to help 343 the next Halo series, there is an argument there to be made, well, they need to maybe carve out a new identity. Yeah. And that might be with sci-fi, that might be with something else. I don't know. I'm really curious to see where they go from it, especially someone who loved the Halo series.
I'm fascinated by what an independent Bungie even does, because they're divorced from all these big top tier publishers for the first time in their career, I think. So I'm curious what they do. Last story of the day is Gearbox Software continuing to be a ping-ponging mess of potential, and oh my god, the two sides of the Gearbox Software coin forever flipping through the sky.
A Gearbox on the...
Yes, so there are multiple things that have happened across the last few weeks. There's all the thing with Borderlands 3 being released, and if you play that game in split-screen multiplayer, you'll know that thing nigh on is released in early access. It's horrible.
I wouldn't ask you to elaborate, but like how what's the difference between this? Like how does the frame rate?
Frame rate's atrocious. Wow. But the menus are terrible anyway. If you play it in single player, they just lag, and you try and play that in multiplayer in the split screen as it is right now before the patches, because it hasn't been patched yet. Single frame. I mean, me and Jules played it. You can go to the WhatCulture Gaming podcast channel and watch the stream of me and Jules playing it. Where if you're in multiplayer, yes, you can play, but if you try and pause, navigate through the menus, or do anything other than just play in game, it just stops. It hangs for like 5-10 seconds. It's really bad. That's not the news thing, but as an encompassing sort of things going on with Gearbox right now, they're not doing that well. Even though Borderlands 3 as a game game, especially in single player, is phenomenal. I really, really love it.
Looking forward to getting that.
It's great, but so the thing that came out recently though was Troy Baker. He was the voice actor for Reese in the Tales of the Borderlands games. He played this like Atlas sort of CO guy, one of the gun companies in the franchise. And just the piece of news that came out was that he was saying, speaking at VG247, that Gearbox wouldn't allow him to come back because they don't work with union voice actors, which is the stupidest thing. But that kind of explains. I mean, another thing to throw in with the Gearbox mess is that Randy Pitchford is alleged to have attacked the dude that played Claptrap beforehand, which is why they had to replace him.
I don't know why, when you say he's attacked the dude who was Claptrap, I like to think that the guy who played Claptrap was literally in the Claptrap robot still. Randy Pitchford's there kicking it on the floor.
Randy Pitchford with his mask on, just running in. But so the whole thing with Troy Baker, he was speaking to VG247, and just there's always the whole formation or the sort of terms that got renegotiated with the SAG-AFTRA union. That was at the end of 2017. Trying to get better rights for voice actors in the gaming industry. Trying to make sure, totally
good thing.
Unilaterally good thing. You don't want your voice actors to be just screaming all day long, doing takes forever and whatever. So they campaigned and unionized to make sure that they had better working conditions. All that stuff went through. Everyone was all thumbs up. Let's all work together. Until this. So Troy Baker was talking to VG247 and just said that when it came to Gearbox and the hiring process, it was a matter that they simply wouldn't go union, and Troy Baker said, I just couldn't do a union gig. He said that they were going to take the characters from Tales of the Borderlands, and they said, do you want to do this? He said yes, but they never did, and they would never budge from their position. He says that I'm not mad, it was invariably completely different. It was a completely different character that went forward instead, but he says it still stings because that character was very much made his own in Tales of the Borderlands, and that game's brilliant as well. So
the Gearbox's statement after this is very weird as well. There was a little passive aggressive jibe at the end, because they mentioned they quoted Texas law on unionization and how their obligations to work with unions as a company. Right. But at the end of it, they post-fixed that with we were really grateful that Troy's career really took off after working with Gearbox, and it's like which. Yeah, and I think Troy Baker probably owes his career to different things. Well, he's done his own talent more so than just Gearbox. Yeah, and opportunity, because he's done loads of stuff. And like you said earlier on, Last of Us is probably
totally. If I was gonna, you can look at that guy's catalog, but the amount of stuff that he's done. If I was gonna pinpoint one game that launched him, it was The Last of Us. It wasn't something relating to Gearbox. But that was like a weird sort of addendum to the potential explanation for it.
I love really petty public statements. Troy, by the way, your career, thank us. But Troy, I Gearbox. I know an entire career. It's not just be. I
had like 15 projects before you, but exactly. So at the minute it just seems like Gearbox is in a bit of a state, and I wouldn't mind if they just calmed the hell down. They've had a pretty disastrous generation so far, minus Borderlands 3. So I think that going forward, just Randy Pitchford and Gearbox, just chill, just count your chickens and make sure they know where they're at. Yeah.
Anyway, let us know what you thought of those stories down in the comments below. Are you excited for the new Xbox dashboard? Bungie's future. They call him Benji. Are you excited for Bungie's future? And what do you think of Troy Baker's little kind of coming together with Gearbox? Let us know down in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you haven't already, you can find more stuff like this on whatculture.com/gaming. You can follow me on Twitter at YouMoonsthings. You can follow Scott on Twitter.
I'm at /LP89, or one word.
And before you head away, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.